Pete Buttigieg and the Transportation Department have responded to the East Palestine, Ohio train derailment and put out a plan for preventing, of course, addressing specifically what's going on now, but preventing future instances like this. If you missed it, a train going through East Palestine, Ohio with toxic chemicals derailed and is now causing a situation where, while authorities are saying things are safe, people on the ground are not experiencing that, and the chemicals seem to be having a pretty significant effect, which is very frightening and serious. But people have been calling on the Transportation Department to put forward solutions to make sure this doesn't happen in the future. Here's Buttigieg announcing this.
Biden administration announcing new steps this morning to hold the rail industry accountable. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg is joining us live this morning. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us this morning. You know, you've got two real big missions right now, helping the people on the ground in East Palestine right now, preventing something like this from happening again. What is the administration doing on both fronts?
That's right. So one of the biggest things to support the people of East Palestine is to make sure that they have access to the public health support they need, to the environmental resources they need. That's why the EPA Administrator, Michael Regan, will be on the ground there again, and why CDC is going out there. But there's another side to the story, which is making sure that we move forward on rail safety in this country. The NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, is an independent body, and they are independently doing their investigative work. But we don't have to wait for their final report to know that some things need to change. And so today, we are pushing forward a three-part drive on rail safety. Things that we're doing at the Department of Transportation to raise the bar, things that we need help from Congress to do in order to hold rail companies accountable, and things that this industry needs to do differently. I got to tell you, ever since I came into this job, I have seen the power that multi-billion-dollar railroad companies wield, and they fight safety regulations tooth and nail. That's got to change. The future cannot be like the past, and I am calling for that change to begin right away.
You're beginning.
And we'll look at one other part of this interview in just a little bit. But before we do, and let me get that queued up, and then we'll take a look at some of what's being proposed here from ABC News. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg announced Tuesday a multi-part push to hold the freight rail industry accountable in the wake of the East Palestine train derailment. In its announcement, the Department of Transportation set out proposals for the railroad industry, the DOT itself, and Congress to follow to improve safety on rails. Buttigieg's push for updated rail safety measures comes as the National Transportation Safety Board investigates the derailment of a train carrying toxic chemicals in Ohio earlier this month, and they provide a quote from what we just saw. For the freight railroad industry, including Norfolk Southern, the DOT called for a series of proactive steps to improve safety, including joining the Federal Railroad Administration's confidential closed call reporting program, phasing in safer tank cars more quickly instead of by a congressionally mandated 2029 deadline. Just a little bit more here, y'all. The DOT called on the railroad industry to give workers paid sick leave, a sticking point in union talks, and to let state emergency response teams know beforehand when they're sending hazardous gas tank cars through states. And then last two parts of this here, as for its own actions, the DOT said in its Tuesday notice is advocating for a rule that will require at least two people to be on train crews and working on starting safety inspection programs for routes that often involve hazardous materials. And for older tank cars, when it comes to Congress, the DOT called for the enactment of stricter safety protocols to increase maximum fines the department can issue to rail companies for violating safety regulations. The current maximum fine is just over $220,000. So multiple different things there. Feel free to dive into the specifics more yourself if you're interested, but I'm glad things are being pushed for and hopefully implemented, because that's always the question in a situation like this. This needs to be properly responded to, but what's going to be done to make sure instances like this in the future aren't as common and prevent future instances like this? And it seems, based on the regulations outlined there, the changes outlined there, that may be the case, and these are proper actions. Hopefully Congress, because there's only so much just the Transportation Department can do, hopefully Congress will get involved, as Pete Buttigieg is pushing for, and one of the things people have criticized Pete Buttigieg for, and this is the last element of this segment we'll talk about, is not properly, quickly enough responding to this and going to East Palestine. This was his answer to that question.
And calling on Congress to work with us to move that date back up, but also the rail industry can do that without us making them, and I hope they will make that change while we simultaneously work on the regulation.
The administration has come under some fire for its response. The mayor of East Palestine has said it took nearly 2 weeks for the White House to contact him. There were shouts of "Where's Pete Buttigieg?" at a town hall meeting last week. What's your response to that? When are you going to go to East Palestine?
Well, I am planning to go, and our folks were on the ground from the first hours. I do want to stress that the NTSB needs to be able to do its work independently. But when I go, the focus is going to be on action. Look, I was mayor of my hometown for 8 years. We dealt with a lot of disasters, natural and human. And one of the things I noticed very quickly is that there's two kinds of people who show up when you have that kind of disaster experience. People who are there because they have a specific job to do and are there to get something done, and people who are there to look good and have their picture taken. When I go, it will be about action on rail safety, like the actions that we are calling on Congress to help us with, that we're calling on industry to take, and that we are undertaking ourselves as a department to help make sure that these kinds of things don't happen in the future.
It did seem the response, at least publicly, was slow to this, and I'm not clear on why that was, but hopefully East Palestine is getting now what they need, the focus that is necessary, and moving forward, we'll have this as an issue that's properly and significantly addressed. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get the full bonus show every single Saturday, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley. Link in the description.